Hi, this is your Professor Judy Pepperozzi. I hope you're all doing well and staying healthy and staying isolated as much as you can given your jobs. I just graded your third essays in our graduate class, and I wanted to talk to you about how I think almost all of you, with maybe 2 exceptions or 3 exceptions, misused and overused the comma. Now, the comma is probably the most used punctuation mark other than the period. However, it is the most misused punctuation mark. So I wanted to go over, there are only a few times you need a comma. So the key with a comma is, when in doubt, leave it out. It is meant to indicate a pause, but your pause and the correct pause may be at odds with one another. So I wanted to go over the main uses for the comma, period. And it's so important that you master grammar before you finish graduate school, which I just spent the entire day grading your papers because I edited them all, and I took great pains to make sure at least 40 minutes on each one, reading it slowly, to make sure I caught all of your errors. One point I wanted to make real quickly is, please proofread your work out loud, because it's not fair that you send me something that is not proofread. It's just not, it should not be done at our level, at this level, master's level, when you could soon be teaching in community colleges or running agencies or whatever. You really need to proofread your work, and the best way to do it is to read it out loud. But I know most of you know that, and most of you had proofread your work beautifully. But please proofread your work, and don't let me catch the fact that you didn't proofread it, because it will affect your grade on the last 2 essays. So let's talk about the comma. Number 1, it is used to join 2 independent clauses, or 2 sentences basically, and it's meant to work with a conjunction like and, but, for, and since to connect 2 sentences or independent clauses. Independent means either one of them could stand on its own as a sentence, and use the comma and a conjunction like and, but, and for to connect the 2 sentences. For example, I went to law school, comma, but I was not a good law student at first. So I could have taken both of those sentences. I went to law school, period, done. I was not a good law student at first, period, done. I could have separated them, so they're independent clauses. But I want to put them together. They're independent sentences, but I want to put them together in one sentence because they're so related. So I use a comma and a conjunction. You just can't use a comma by itself, and you must use at least a comma and a conjunction, or if you choose, make them 2 sentences. So if there's a subject in each sentence, a verb in each sentence, and each sentence, each part of it or clause expresses a complete thought, okay? There are 3 ways you can punctuate it. 1 is period, no problem. 2 sentences, no problem. 1 is a comma and a conjunction, no problem. Use a comma and then a conjunction, and, but, for, etc. The 3rd way, if you want to just put a comma, like many people have done in my undergraduate class, is just a comma, but it's 2 independent clauses. It needs more than that. You can use my favorite form of punctuation, the semicolon, dot, comma. It connects 2 independent clauses and makes them into 1 sentence. Very easy. All right, that's the first one. The second one, of course, is any element in a series or a list. That's easy. I went to the store to buy bananas, Purell, face mask. No, obviously I can't. But of course, bananas, comma, bread, comma, and milk, period. Okay. Another one is that a lot of you are missing are introductory phrases. So an introductory phrase is extra information, but it's not the subject or the verb of the sentence. When I went into the grocery store, comma, I found that there was no toilet paper. Okay? So the comma set off that extra information when I went into the grocery store, comma. So it's usually, the rule is if the introductory phrase is 4 words or more, use a comma. But I happen to like it all the time, and all the time is also correct. So going into work, comma. That's only 3 words, going into work. That's only 3 words, but I like it because it sets it off from the main part of the sentence, which has the subject, verb, and expresses the complete thought. So a lot of you are missing introductory phrase commas, okay? Positives. An appositive is extra information in a sentence. For example, Professor Paparosi, comma, a New Jersey lawyer, comma, is my professor. So I could take out that extra information, a lawyer from New Jersey, which I set off with commas, and I could just say Professor Paparosi is my professor, which sounds stupid, but that extra information is meant to just tell you more about the subject of the sentence in this particular case. Another one would be this pandemic, comma, which has impacted the whole world, comma, will hopefully come to an end soon, period. So you could say this pandemic will hopefully come to an end soon. So anything extra is called an appositive. But the appositive has another role, not just that it's extra, but it defines or further clarifies some noun in the sentence. Okay? Now you can also have a comma if you're using several adjectives together, and the test is, does the word and make sense between the two adjectives? For example, that tall, handsome man is my husband. Well, if I could put if I could put the and between tall and handsome, the two adjectives, and it still makes sense, then use a comma. The tall and handsome man is my husband. Makes perfect sense. So you would punctuate it, the tall, comma, handsome man is my husband. Okay, so that's another use. Now, of course, there's uses with like between a city and a state and in a date and so forth. But I think you all know those. Here is a really critical one. Never separate a subject from its verbs, okay? Now, what I'm saying is a lot of times you have one subject but two verbs. So unless it's in a positive or some other reason, don't separate a subject when there's one subject and two verbs. For example, I went to the store but could not find milk. Now, what's the subject? It's I. There's one subject. I went to the store, so I went is the verb, and could not find milk is the second verb. So no comma before that but. Why? Because I'm joining two independent clauses, but could not find milk. There's no subject because the subject is before the comma that a lot of you put in. So I went to the store, but could not find milk gets no comma. However, if I put a noun in the second part, the second independent clause, I went to the store, comma, but I could not find milk. Now I have two subjects, I in the first part and I in the second part. Lastly, a lot of you want to put commas that are not justified by any of the rules that I just mentioned. So at the end of the sentence, you'll say like, I went to the pharmacy, comma, looking for Purell and face mask. No. Stop doing that. Even if you hear a pause, don't do it unless one of these 5 or 6 rules apply. And the main rule about commas is when in doubt, leave it out. But you should know the rules that I've just gone over: to join two independent clauses with a conjunction, to set off elements in a series or a list, for introductory phrases, to set off an appositive, and adjectives that could take the word and between them. And never, ever, 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 ever separate one subject from its two verbs when you have two verbs in a sentence but only one subject. Okay? Good job on the essays. Most of you got very, very high marks. But if you don't proofread next time, I'm going to take 10 points right off the top because it really shows that, well, it doesn't really show anything to me except you didn't proofread. But please proofread your work from now on. Thank you. Stay well.